over the head as Prime Minister here in Jamaica. Your stay in the Jamaica Labour Party, you had left at one time and you came back, and at 59 you won that general election. What was it like campaigning for that general election, that moment? What was it like?
Well, the campaign or the moment of victory. The
campaign leading up to the moment of victory.
Was a long, intensive campaign, but I think we crafted a clear vision of what we wanted to see, of the direction in which we wanted the country to go. The results were perhaps closer than we had anticipated. We were looking at the possibility of winning 38 seats, expecting that we would probably have come out with 36. We ended up with 32. The moment of victory itself was conditioned by the nature of the victory and the size of the victory. I remember on election night when I went to party headquarters to address the crowd, and it was a huge crowd there. You must bear in mind, you know, that the Labour Party had been in opposition for 18 years. And therefore, a victory, no matter what the size of the majority, was something overwhelming.
Sweet victory.
For JLP supporters. But I was minded by the fact that the then Prime Minister had not conceded victory, had made a statement on the night of the election to suggest that, look, this thing is not over. There are constituencies that we are going to examine and challenge and so on. And I recognized that the potential was there for a serious unrest in the country. If people felt that the normal, peaceful transfer of power was not going to be allowed to take place. And therefore, deliberately when I spoke, and it was carried on all the radio stations, television stations, international media, I felt I had to send a signal to my own supporters that, look, be gracious in your victory. I even said to them, I said, if you see anybody from the opposing side, you reach out to them. You go buy them a drink. This is not a time for boasting or for gloating. It is a time to unite the country. And I call on the country, let us come together. I acknowledge, I recognize that the slenderness of the margin meant that we would have to deliberately, necessarily, pursue a path that would see us working together, government opposition. I thought it was important to do that because if I hadn't done that, I'm not sure what Jamaica would have been like in the couple of days that followed. And I was pleased. By the following day, the country woke up, everything was normal, people took everything in stride. We have sought since then to broaden that kind of bipartisan approach. Some of the things that we did were symbolic, but symbols very often are important to convey an intention. We did, for the first time ever, we provided an official office with support facilities to the leader of the opposition, because I think it is right so to do. We have established the social partnership, which prior to this involved the government, the private sector, and the trade unions. We insisted that we needed to expand it to include the opposition, so that in discussing national policies, in discussing development initiatives, we felt that it is important for the opposition to be there. Why do I think it's so important? Jamaica is not going to be able to progress if Jamaica proceeds on one path when my party is in power, and then if my party is not in power, it makes a 90-degree turn. I thought it was important to try to identify those elements of our development strategy, those aspects of national life that are so critical to us and to our future, that they must be made to transcend partisan politics, so that whether we're talking about transforming education and ensuring that all of our children have access to a good education, whether it is in the strategies that we're using to combat crime, because we have an unbearable level of crime. I just feel that there are some issues that we must be able to isolate from the competitiveness of politics and say, no, look, no matter which party is in power, these are things that Jamaica can expect to see done, because these things are important to the future of our country.
Speaking of that, Mr. PM, during your campaign you spoke of political tribalism, and you wanted to rid that because you wanted all Jamaicans to come together on one common ground. You spoke of corruption in politics, and you wanted to get rid of that. Where are you today with corruption in politics in Jamaica?
And well, let's start with tribalism first, because I believe we're making progress. I made a point very clearly during the campaign that tribalism is not something that, it's not a physical structure. When you speak of garrison constituencies, we're not talking about a 10-foot wall. If it were that, then the simple thing would be just to use a big caterpillar tractor and go tear it down. It is part of our culture. It is something that has been built up over many, many years. It is going to have to be changed by a process of transformation. That is taking place. We do not have today the level of tribalism that existed 30 years ago, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago. In my own constituency, for example, which has always been stigmatized as one of the garrison constituencies, PNP and JLP supporters, we work together, we talk together, we live together. When I'm going into my constituencies, I drive through Hannahtown. Hannahtown is the PNP enclave in West Kingston. That's the route I travel. 10 years ago, that's not the route that you could afford to travel. In addition to that, we have deliberately sought to create a new sense of equality among the party functionaries. For example, in the constituency development program, which is a major initiative that we took to ensure that MPs could be enabled to respond in a more effective way to the demands of their constituents. One of the complaints that we used to get is that, boy, you know, I vote for you, but every time I ask you about the road, you say, boy, you can't do any better because you don't have any money to spend. So we created this program supported by a constituency development fund to ensure that there were funds there, that MPs would be able to arrange to have roads fixed, to arrange to have water pipes run. And in doing that, unlike in the past where if my party is in power, my MPs would get more money to spend than the opposition MPs. In this case, we said this has to be equal for everybody. So I am Prime Minister of the country. I get the same amount as a PNP Member of Parliament from Westmoreland. These are important changes to what used to take place before, so that you don't have to have this fight to the death because all the benefits are on one side. That's a process that has to continue. But a lot of it will depend on leadership, on the quality leadership. I think it's improving. I think that there are members of Parliament today who recognize that this can't be a business where when I'm in, only my ideas must prevail and only my people must be recognized. And therefore you have to fight to the death to get me out, because that's the only way your people will get a break. We're moving away from that. I don't tell you that that process is completed. We have a lot much more work to do. On the question of corruption, we have taken steps to introduce what we consider to be the most important tool in fighting corruption, which is a bill that is before Parliament for the establishment of a special prosecutor and for a complete restructuring of the corruption prevention laws. That special prosecutor, some people call him call that post a corruption czar. That special prosecutor will have no other responsibility. They're not going to be concerned with prosecuting ordinary crimes, whether it is murder or robbery or whatever. Their sole remit of that particular person is going to be to investigate and prosecute instances involving corruption. And they'll be able to receive information from anybody. Somebody can slip a piece of paper under the door to say, hey, you know, look into this contract because some hanky-panky went on. They can start an investigation right away.